So here's my problem. I'm obsessed with this idea of making personal vlogs, but without actually appearing in them much. And that's an idea that's kind of dead on arrival, right? Because people want to see who they're trying to get to know. Well, this is me right here, so I've given you that. I'll pop up again later in the video, but maybe just pretend I'm a fashionable young ingenue. But also, people like color, and I insist on making this whole thing black and white. And the other thing I insist on that's not very smart is I don't stick to one type of video on this channel. People want consistency. They want to know what box to put you in. They want to know what to expect. The algorithm wants that too. Everything you see these days is in some way chosen by an algorithm, and contrary to popular belief, algorithms aren't actually that smart. They mostly just give you more of what you've already seen. But anyway, this isn't really meant to be a video about any of that. I just think it would be cool to be a guy who can just shoot some footage of New York like this and then talk about my life. And as of right now, I guess I am that guy, whether anyone's watching or not. So, hi, I'm an artist and designer and animator and whatever else, living in New York City, and I'm in the middle of a move after having lived in one place for, I don't know, 15 years. And so I feel like I'm at the end of something, like maybe the winter that's still holding on to New York. But I know intellectually that I'm also at the beginning of something, like maybe the spring that still feels pretty far away, but is sure to come, according to the calendar. My whole life is in boxes, most of which are lining my walls around a wood floor that has never been this bare. A long time ago, I wrote a song in which I made a wooden floor feel like a frozen-over lake, and things feel like that now. And it feels like it's a deep lake, and that the frozen floor is a little dangerous, brittle enough that I could fall through if I sat in the middle of it. So I stick to the couch and imagine it in the new space, with new blank walls, white as snow. We're staying in New York among these people that are always going places. I don't talk to them much, but I love being in their midst. I love being one of them. I am one of them. When I first moved to the US, it was to go to art school in Baltimore, but the plan was always to end up in New York. And the plan worked. When I first moved here, I was living in the East Village, or Alphabet City, if we're being real, with 2 roommates, both women. None of whom were my girlfriend, except for a brief moment maybe, depending on how you count. After that, I moved to Hell's Kitchen with a woman who actually was my girlfriend, and then my fiancée, and eventually my ex, right after we moved to Inwood, right at the top of Manhattan. And while living up there, I started dating again and met someone great who was from the West Village, and we ended up moving downtown together and getting married too. Now we're headed uptown again. I feel like I've been on a tour of Manhattan for half my life. Each of the neighborhoods I've lived in, I still feel like I belong there in some sense. But every time I go back, some old thing has disappeared and some new thing has taken its place. I think we don't live in neighborhoods, we live in memories. There are midnight showings in my mind that can no longer be because that basement theater is no more, and the store above it is no more. And that karaoke place I uncomfortably sang at with colleagues at one time, it burned down. Insurance fraud, I heard. I forget where I heard this, but there used to be a pizza place I went to sometimes when I lived in Midtown, and above it was what looked like apartments, but apparently it was a brothel, and cops would go there to get free blowjobs in exchange for letting the place stay in business. In retrospect, that pizza was too greasy. I feel like I heard this sort of gossip when I was younger, but now everything's more left to the imagination for me. I'm more on the outside now than ever, and the city feels more like everything's just another branch of some corporate office. Don't get me wrong though, I still love it here. I think every generation is under the impression that the city just isn't what it once was, and every generation is right, but also somehow clueless about the fact that, of course, the city isn't what it used to be. It's always changing. things happen here. We're actually not quite able to move out yet, and we're not really able to move in either. So right now it feels like life is frozen in place, and I can't close this chapter, and I can't start a new one. In a way, I think that's a luxurious state to be in, but it's hard to enjoy that luxury when you don't know how things are going to work out. There's also a part of this limbo state that will probably involve a short stay at a hotel, which will be a really weird experience. I don't think I've ever stayed in a hotel in New York. Maybe I should vlog that. Most of the vlogs I watch are people sharing their struggles with something, like their doubts about their artistic abilities or issues with their mental health. And I think those vlogs are successful because people find them relatable. It's relatable to be vulnerable and to share about your issues. I think I'm reasonably willing to be vulnerable, but the truth is I don't really have mental health issues to any sort of exciting degree. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm terminally depressed like any sane person would be about the state of our world, but apart from that, I'm pretty content with my life. I'm privileged to be able to create this safe bubble around myself where I can set aside the atrocities of the world and just focus on some pixels on a screen or some lines in a sketchbook, or think about what I should order for dinner tonight. I think it's going to be Thai, by the way. Chicken cashew nut. Chicken cashew nut is a weird name for a dish, right? It's like meatball spaghetti pasta. Ingredient, category of previous ingredient. I guess insightful observations like that are probably the secret to sustaining a practice of making regular vlogs. Part of me wonders, like, how do people do this? You know, how are they able to just speak so naturally into the camera, like, week after week? But the answer is probably to just say any dumb thing that comes to mind, like meatball spaghetti pasta. I've never felt more relatable. I want to get to a place where I can just sit down and talk to you like we're old friends without scripting anything or planning anything out. I want to be able to do this in a way that feels really natural, but I guess I have to practice that. I have to practice talking like I'm a baby left in a basket, just sailing down a digital river.